Selamat pagi and good morning, and Your Excellency, distinguished guests, and all our participants. I'd like to welcome all of you to the third Kiosco's ASEAN briefing. The topic is Koreans in the Pacific Series and the Indonesia-Korea relations. This time, we collaborated with Indonesia Embassy in Seoul. Today's speaker is Mr. Vahd Nabyl A, who is an Indonesian diplomat and counselor, currently serving as the coordinator of Korea region and the director of the East Asia, the Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We are very happy to invite Mr. Nabyl today, but before he speaks, I'd like to invite Professor Kim Dong-yeol, Director of the Korea Institute for ASEAN Studies of the Busan University of Foreign Studies, to give an opening speech. Please welcome Professor Kim Dong-yeol.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dong-yeol Kim, Director of the Institute for ASEAN Studies at Busan University of Foreign Studies. I would like to thank my fellow colleagues and friends at home and abroad for attending this third KIAS BUF ASEAN briefing. Above all, I would like to thank the Indonesian Embassy in Seoul for co-hosting this event. Of course, my special appreciation goes to Mr. Nabyl from Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs for coming over here in Busan and sharing his thoughts on the topic today. I also like to thank to designated discussant, political scientist Professor Bae Ki-hyun from Sogang University, and economist Professor Lee Chung-yeol from Korea University. As for a little background, let me allow to introduce some background. Starting from September 2021, the KIAS BUFS is conducting a 6-year research project sponsored by Korea Research Foundation. The research agenda is Korea's approach to ASEAN sub-regions as for enhancing strategic cooperation between ASEAN and Korea. The KIAS BUFS ASEAN briefing is one of the academic activities under the research project. The main purpose of ASEAN briefing is to strengthen cooperation by conveying information on pending issues between Korea and the ASEAN region and promoting mutual understanding. As we all witnessed, the international community is facing a time of crisis, with a war in Eastern Europe, rising military tensions in East Asia, and global supply chain competition between the US and China. The strategic competition between great powers presents a major challenge for both Indonesia and Korea. Geopolitically, both countries are located at the crossroad between the Chinese global strategy and the US Indo-Pacific strategy to counter. The similar geopolitical position makes necessary for both Indonesia and Korea to cooperate closely in order to navigate this time of crisis. Mr. Nabyl's lecture today on Korea's Indo-Pacific strategy and Indonesia-Korea relations has a special meaning since this year marks the 50th anniversary of the establishment of Indonesia-Republic of Korea relations. Moreover, Indonesia is the chair country of ASEAN this year. So Indonesian assessment of Korea's foreign policy could have a significant impact on Korea-ASEAN relations too. Through this lecture, we would expect to hear how Indonesians evaluate the Korean government's Indo-Pacific strategy and the issues of Indonesia-Korea relations. I hope this event will contribute to enhance understanding between the two countries and to build closer relations in the future. Finally, I wish everyone attending this event here in this room and online would have a meaningful and fruitful times. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Kim Dong-yeon. Before Mr. Nabi speaks, I would like to introduce his background briefly. Nabi holds a master's degree in intercultural counseling from the Faculty of the Humanities of the UNC University in Finland, and a postgraduate diploma in diplomatic studies from St. Paul's in Oxford, UK. Nabi joined his country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 2005 and served in various positions at the Office of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. From 2018 to 2021, Nabi served as a counselor for the Economic Affairs at the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Indonesia to the United States of the United Nations in New York. So now let's invite Mr. Nabi.
Where's the monitor? Is there a screen for people who are joining online?
Yes.
Okay, good morning. Good morning, everybody. I want to, first of all, to say thank you to Busan University Foreign Studies for facilitating this session. I also want to thank especially Director Kim, also moderator Professor Gu, as well as Professor Lee, and to the Embassy of Indonesia in Seoul for giving this opportunity for me to be here in opportunity to share my thoughts on the topic that we are discussing today, which is Korea, Indo-Pacific strategy and Indonesia-Korea relations. So I will speak for a couple of minutes on a certain structure, and after that we will come to a discussion at the end. And as the moderator already mentioned, I'm originally from Bandung, in Indonesia, and I have been taking care of the Korea desk in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs since 2021. So what I'm going to present here is going to be a mix between my readings as well as from the practical point of view. But what I'm interested in is not just to share my thoughts, but also to lead several questions at the end, because I think it's important. If we ask a certain question, it's already half of our effort to get better understanding about the dynamic in relations between Indonesia and Korea, and seen from the perspective of the regional as well as the bilateral context. So this is a glance of the outline of what I will present. I'm going to start by looking at how the bilateral relations between Indonesia and Korea evolved throughout the 50 years of diplomatic relations as of now, and also further after that, I will speak about the challenges that we are seeing in the global as well as in the regional context. And in this sense, I will continue with discussing about the competing Indo-Pacific regional architecture concepts that's being offered by countries in the region. And then after that, I will also continue with how the existing bilateral relations between Indonesia and Korea can move forward based on the similarities and the common values that is enshrined in the two countries' outlook for the region. And then, of course, we will have discussion after that. Okay, I'm going to start now with a glance of why ROK matters to Indonesia. Okay, if we see here in the slide, we start by seeing why Indonesia and Korea are important for each other, because there is, first, I quote here, we have shared values. Of course, values are important, but values cannot speak by themselves. There is something that we need to put a right angle on how to understand and to translate these values in their relations. For example, here, democracy, both countries respect the democratic system in their own political landscape domestically, and we both give a great respect as well to the promotion of human rights, and we see that open economy is something very beneficial, not just for their own domestic constituents, but also to facilitate cooperation in the region as well as in the world. And then another shared values that I want to highlight here is that both countries actually are aspiring to maintaining regional and world peace, stability, and prosperity. And these efforts are done sometimes through their joint efforts, as we call it, like-minded countries in different fora, not just in bilateral efforts, but sometimes you do through trilateral or through MITA, through G20, and so on. So the shared values that share as a common foundation for the bigger cooperation between the two countries beyond their bilateral context. And then here I mentioned about Special Strategic Partnership 2017. I will be elaborating a little bit more detail on this when we go to the next slides. But what I want to emphasize here is that the Special Strategic Partnership is something that serves as an umbrella or something that covers a very broad spectrum of cooperation. And it was announced during the visit of President of Republic of Korea to Indonesia. And Special Strategic Partnership is a term that is not used as the title of any document, but it's something inside the document. If you see there's a declaration, and inside the declaration, both presidents agreed to elevate the status of their relations as special strategic partners. So this is something that we realized in 2017, and then now we have developed what is called as a plan of action of the special strategic partnership for the duration from 2021 to 2025. Now, next, I want to highlight as well, because in the economic terms, economic cooperation terms, South Korea is one of the major partners of Indonesia. Last year, South Korea is the 7th largest source of investment and also for bilateral trade. And as well as one of the biggest destinations for Indonesian migrant workers. Here we have data that was gathered from the source from last year. And I can also mention that in the past 2 years, at least since the pandemic of COVID-19, the projection of economic cooperation between the two countries started to recover. And in that sense, during major meetings between the leaders, the highlight is often on the economic sectors. It's like the core of the bilateral relations is on the economic sector cooperation. That's something that I really noticed in the past 2 years since I am dealing with the Korea desk in Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And this is the next slide. I want to speak about my own reflection with the vis-a-vis why Indonesia matters. At least if we see in the Demographically speaking, of course, Indonesia has population which is around 280 million. It's a huge market, and those large number of population also have intangible value in terms of ideas, people with creativity, they have productivity and so on. And also with the geographic size with thousands of islands, I think somebody once made a calculation. If we spend a day in each of island in Indonesia, we need 44 years to be able to visit all those islands, how big Indonesia is. And then many people maybe didn't realize that when I fly from Jakarta to Seoul the other day, the distance was around 5,300 kilometers. And then if you fly from the easternmost point of Indonesia to the westernmost point, it's about the same size, but we think still in Indonesia. So the direction, I mean, the distance is similar. I also use this comparison when I was posted in the United States, when I was speaking to my colleagues in America, that the size of the continental USA from East Coast to West Coast is similar to Indonesia from East to West, except that Indonesia 70% is ocean. So we are quite large in that sense, and that's geographically why Indonesia matters. And also we have rich natural resources. It's already been known, and that's why we also want to develop the industry in Indonesia, not just to export raw natural resources, but also want to create industry in Indonesia to make these natural resources have added value. And we also provide supply chain, source for supply chain for many countries, including to South Korea. I think I was yesterday I was giving an example when I was speaking in the forum the other day, that during the crisis in the 70s, I think we recall, but there was an energy crisis when there was a oil crisis, and then Indonesia provided gas to South Korea as well to help continuity of industrialization here in South Korea. So also regarding the urea for industry, I think it was also mentioned by other speakers yesterday in Sila. But other than that, Indonesia also matters because of its diplomatic strength. Its active diplomatic efforts in ASEAN, leadership in ASEAN last year in G20, also in MICTA, IORA, and others. So in the UN as well. We have very active diplomatic activities that is making Indonesia relevant. And then I want to speak now here a little bit in more detail about the milestones of Indonesia and Korea relations. Because if you see 50 years ago when the diplomatic relation was established, of course the context why it was taking place at that time, it cannot be separated from the global context at that time during the Cold War. Okay, I think why it started just in 1973, not earlier. I think that is a phenomenon that common at that time, especially among the non-aligned movement countries. If you recall, if you see in the history, I think most of the members of the non-aligned movement started diplomatic relations with North Korea first, not with South Korea first. That was the context at that time. But things happen after there was changes in the Indonesian domestic level as well, and also in the global level as well, that the competition between East and West began to be shifting to more economic cooperation. So Indonesia and South Korea developed much more active cooperation, which culminating in 2006 establishment of strategic partnership, and then 2017 special strategic partnership. Now we are at that stage. In 2017, we come up with a special strategic partnership, but a document cannot just sit as it is. So we come to go into a detail with what is called here as plan of action. In my slide, I put it in red because that plan of action actually consists of very detailed cooperation that Indonesia and South Korea wants to do in the next year, in the duration of 2021 to 2025. And my job, at least in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is to evaluate regularly every year, at least from 2021 to 2022. We see what cooperation that has been established, that has been effective, what is stuck, what is need to be more pursued, and what is not be able to be continued. So, of course, there are a number of factors. A plan of action is a plan. So it's not a goal. It's something that help us evaluate whether our cooperation is working according to what we want. Because sometimes there are aspects that's beyond the control of the two countries to make sure whether it will happen or not. And this special strategic partnership also provide a certain common ground, including our intention to have celebration of 50 years of diplomatic relation this year. Okay, now this is what is the importance of the plan of action. I think I already elaborate on this, so I can skip this part. But here, okay, I want to highlight on the highlights of official visits. What you are seeing on the screen right now is actually just a tip of an iceberg. I mean, the actual number of visits between officials is difficult for me to keep trace. I think my colleague at the embassy, Ibu Rohana, can also attest that since the pandemic offers, the number of visits between Indonesian officials and Korean officials to each other really increased. And I think what I'm trying to display here is just what we see in the presidential and Minister of Foreign Affairs levels. But what I want to emphasize, okay, that picture on the top is me when I was the LO for President Yoon in the G20. I happened to be the LO who was accompanying President Yoon throughout the meetings in Bali at that time. It was quite a great honor for me. So I look forward if there is another opportunity, maybe during ASEAN Summit or so on. But here, what I want to highlight here is the intention for maintaining visits and meeting is always there because it entails a lot of cooperation that they want to achieve. Because sometimes meeting like this is not just a matter of face-to-face interaction, but sometimes people want to use this as a momentum to push for an agenda that stuck. For example, if there is a cooperation that needs to be inaugurated, or if there is some, they want to use this moment to see something meaningful in this meeting. So it's not just niceties, but something concrete that is established. And sometimes the emphasis mostly on the economic aspect, investment, trade, or students exchange, or maybe on labor cooperation, something like that. Here I also mentioned that our 5th president also attended the inauguration of the president of the Republic of Korea last year, and the speaker of the National Korean Assembly also visit Indonesia almost every year. So it's really very active. It's only in this sector. If I display all of the visits, it will be too long. But I hope we get the idea that interaction between Korea and Indonesia is happening also not just in the central government level, but also in the regional government and NGOs, businesses as well. But this is what is very interesting in my opinion. And then now, if we go back to the context of the topic today, Korea Indo-Pacific strategy and Indonesia-Korea relations, we cannot separate what is the strategy about with the global and regional challenges. Now, I will start with elaborating a little bit on the global challenges, which I think it has been already highlighted by Prof. Kim in the beginning. All these list that you see on the screen is already known, so it's very familiar. These three challenges affect how diplomacy work, how international relations work, at least in three levels. If you want to see how COVID-19 changes the way diplomacy, for example, you can see it at the global level, which means at the discourse that is being discussed. Remember, before 2021, before COVID became so widespread, we all focus on SDG, and since COVID happened, all of the discourse in the United Nations, in ASEAN, in all regions, they always add the terms in COVID-19 at the end of every sentence. For example, how to say blah, 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 after COVID, how in COVID. So COVID becomes a trend, and same with something that is happening at that scale was really felt. Also, not just in the global level. The second effect that it is affecting is the national level. At least Indonesia has changed its priorities in diplomacy from before COVID to during COVID and after COVID. I think the same thing with Republic of Korea. I think how budget is being allocated internally, how you want to prioritize securing the safety of the people, health of the people, even before vaccine was invented and during the distribution, and then after that, how to make sure our immediate neighbors are also vaccinated, right? So it's not just your own country that is being saved, but also your friends and then your other countries, because it's all very related. And then the other challenges that you see here, of course, the Russia and Ukraine war, it's something that I want to highlight as well, because it's dealing with how multilateralism and regional cooperation is being questioned with what we see right now. And also there is impact of the COVID. Here I mentioned on economic decline, which is now already starting to recover, but still it's not even. And then the arms race, climate change, it's something that's already known since the decades ago, but I don't think we really come to a conclusion yet whether we can address it appropriately and to stop the impact of the climate change. And it needs action that is done by everybody. And then the last point here, erosion of multilateralism. I think I already highlighted a little bit earlier, but basically it's dealing with trust on how multilateralism can be a guarantor for many countries, right? Because as history already seen, it's being eroded. So we want to see how it can be protected. I mean, multilateralism values. Now, if we look into more closer geographic scope in the region, of course, it's already known as well. The growing rivalry between US and China, it's sometimes translated into numerous manifestation. You can see how the two big powers try to keep their influence in the region, and also there is also the issue with Taiwan Straits, and then here Korean Peninsula and South China Sea. I think Myanmar is the homework in ASEAN as well, and during the Indonesia's leadership also. But this is something that we in the region try to address with our immediate neighbors as well as with partners outside the region. This will lead us to what is called the competition on the regional architecture concept. So on the Indo-Pacific topic, I wish to elaborate the perspective that Southeast Asia, or at least Asia-Pacific, has always been at the center of attention since long time ago. And now it's coming back again in the discourse. Why I say it's coming back again? Because during the Cold War, we know this region has also been contesting for sphere of influence between major competing ideological blocks, right? At least Southeast Asia, I think it used to be the center of rivalry at the time, and now it's again back at the focus of this rivalry, and this competing concept try to put Southeast Asia in a region that they try to extend their initiative and cooperation, but the difference is that they are approaching it from a zero-sum game, or at least literally that doesn't have inclusivity in it. So it's like you have to choose to be with this part or with this part. So I think we are familiar with the US Indo-Pacific Economic Partnership. We know which country that's not included in that partnership initiative. We heard about that at least. And then when other countries come up with Belt and Road Initiative, we know there's a pushback from other countries because they see it as a zero-sum game as well. But at least what we see from Korea's Indo-Pacific strategy, it doesn't exclude any country. That's why my reading after I see the document that was launched last year. But we also have Japan's Free and Open Indo-Pacific, and also AUKUS. We see all this, the understanding how we read these initiatives in the region. There are certain similarities, and what I think is important for Indonesia is that this doesn't make Indonesia in a position to exclude one of the powers in the region. And other than that, we can continue now see this on ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific, AOIP. Indonesia and ASEAN are committed to manage the Indo-Pacific political reality through the implementation of the AOIP. Okay, because since 1967, we have realized that this competing nature in the environment, we want to manage it through a strategy that is continually adaptive. And we have in the past created a zone of peace, ZOFAN, and also we have other initiative in the region that is aiming at creating inclusivity. So this collective will of ASEAN, I think, reflecting a desire not to be pulled into any side of geostrategic magnetism in the Indo-Pacific, if I can put it that way. It's because in a magnet, they try to pull like a magnetic field. So I think with AOIP, ASEAN does not want to be pulled into any geostrategic magnetism in the region. And then another characteristic that's important, I think, is respect for international law. Yeah, I think this is also something that we often emphasize in many occasions, that we don't see the rule of law as a problem, but as rather as a guarantor to peace and maintaining predictability and stability, which is essential for development and peace. And then the other element that we often highlight is the centrality of ASEAN, because ASEAN has a number of cooperation under it that is involving countries other than 10 members. So the position of ASEAN in the centrality has a very strategic value, not just for the members of the ASEAN itself, but also for the other countries. And there are many dialogue partners, dialogue mechanisms involving different sides that are often competing in each other, but the ASEAN forum in many of its names and format is one of the opportunity for the countries to discuss issues in the region. And then if we now look at Korea Indo-Pacific strategy, I think it was already launched last year, and I want to highlight here the three main principles. It's there in the document where on the three main principles is inclusiveness, trust, and reciprocity. Why it's important? Because I think, in my view, of course, Korea wants this strategy to be open and it doesn't target a specific country, and it's based on trust and cooperation. And it's important to have mutual benefit. Reciprocity is something that's highlighted in Korea's Indo-Pacific strategy. And there are 9 cooperation priorities if you see in the document. But what I think is really interesting here, it starts with rule-based regional order. It means there is similarity with ASEAN's importance on the rule of law, right? If you see that, it's something in common. It means we really depend on the importance of international rules-based order to our peace and stability in the region. So that's something interesting. And then if you look also here, human rights. Of course, human rights is an important topic. I think both country, Indonesia and South Korea, also has a great emphasis on this. And then non-proliferation and counterterrorism. Yes, this is a very wide aspect of cooperation that can be done here, including nuclear non-proliferation. It's not only in bilateral context with Indonesia again, but there are many initiatives that Indonesia is prominent on, in this topic with our colleagues in the UN and in region to ASEAN on nuclear non-proliferation. Also, yes, security cooperation is similar, and then economic cooperation too. Economic security is basically related to the ensuring of supply chains. How can make sure the economic development can continue without any challenge or disruptions that cannot be addressed. And then leadership in climate change and energy security. It's very clear. I sense that the current administration in the Republic of Korea is very active in climate change, including the efforts they're pursuing bilaterally through targeted countries, including Indonesia. Because even yesterday, when I just arrived in Busan, I received a text from your embassy in Jakarta, because I'm also desk Korea, asking about what should we do with the proposal on climate change cooperation, because it's very important. So I think because climate change is becoming a topic that is on the top priority of Korea, I think my homework also, I have to speak with my colleagues dealing with climate change issue in Indonesia about this, how to get the cooperation is manifested for mutual benefit. And then I want to highlight the next one is on cooperation on economic development. Certainly, economic development. This is one thing I learned from studying about Korea development, is that Korea managed to become this advanced due to its ability to use support from international community to develop. And then now, once it's already in such developed level, it wants to be on the position to help others to develop as well. Something that I think it's really great, because they know the benefit of economic development that can create stability, peace, and democracy as well. So this is something that Indonesia is really interested to highlight, I think, in the bilateral relation with Korea. And Korea also have a great interest in ASEAN through KASI, Korea-ASEAN Solidarity Initiative. Of course, it's going to be seen how it's going to be rolled out in years to come. But at least the intended goals here is there are some greater goals. I want to highlight here next. Maybe this is going to be my last slide on Korea's study. on the Indo-Pacific strategy. But this, I want to see how ASEAN is located inside the strategy. If you look again at the document, here ASEAN is mentioned as one of 6 regional approach that Korea is pursuing for its Indo-Pacific strategy. Okay? And there is what I just mentioned, the Korea ASEAN Solidarity Initiative. It's supporting the ARP, and it's want to use the existing mechanism in ASEAN to pursue Korea's strategy in the region as well. So there is the realization that understanding that it cannot just work by itself, it needs partners. Partnership with the region is important, and I think Korea is already mentioning in the document about the goal that they want to achieve in this context, including denuclearization of the BRK and cooperation with what IPF, CP, and CPTPP. And then what you see now on the screen is more normative. I don't really put the details about what can be done in terms of concrete implementation day to day, but at least this is the idea that from the ministry, I think we are trying to see the bilateral relation with ROK. We want to strengthen it for the purpose of ensuring cooperation to enhance Indonesia's development, at least in the industrial sector. And at that time, vaccine research was also dominant, at least during the pandemic COVID-19. But now, in health sector, is still one of the major cooperation that Indonesia and Korea is also pursuing. And then in the regional context here, I put ASEAN ROK partnership, which I think is being done quite effectively. This year, there is a commemoration as well for ASEAN ROK. There is a lot of similarity that can be copied from ASEAN cooperation with other countries that ROK can also do. So it needs more kind of study on that. But I think ROK is in a unique position to utilize ASEAN to enhance its cooperation with Indonesia. And then the last part is on promoting of peace and region, stability in region and beyond. Of course, there are similar characteristics that we share, which can be used to project the cooperation forward. And then on the following slides, you will see mostly questions. And then these are the questions that I really doesn't have time to study because this is something really recent. You know, in this month, President Yoon just issued what is called as strategy for this one, national strategy, security strategy. Yeah, this point number 2. This is something really recent. I really want to study more on this and how the implementation can be converging into the cooperation more between Indonesia and South Korea. But from what we have right now, what we see right now, since last year when ROK issued its Indo-Pacific strategy, I think those are my reflection. And of course, it's open for discussion, interpretation, and if some of you wants to comment or add or challenge the idea, it's more welcome. Thank you so much for giving me the time to present the ideas.